Anemia, of course, all of us know is a real problem in our country. No matter what we have done in last 70 years, that it has not really budged. And if you see even the latest survey, in fact, in many states, as you see here, the anemia number of anemia patients, especially ladies, have increased, and that's a sad story of what our health situation is in our country. And that's where we have been talking about doing away with anemia, so many programs for last 20-30 years, but still we need to push, and that's why we need to have some innovative ways. And of course, we know iron deficiency anemia in pregnancy, as obstetricians and gynecologists, has huge problems. Maternal problems, fetal problems, PPH, preeclampsia, you name it, and it's there. Preterm birth, fetal growth restriction, and so on. So, use of iron actually started 300 years back, and at that time the condition was somehow known as chlorosis, and that has been noted in 1893 by Stockman. And first oral use was by a Frenchman called as Pierre Blau, actually. And it has been going on, and first they the ferrous sulfate was introduced at that time. So imagine how old this particular molecule is and how useful it is. So far, so it must be one of the record of consistency of this molecule. But we know that the oral iron has problems like gastrointestinal toxicity. Many of our patients don't like to take that. The constipation becomes a very big problem, and even we try to control the anemia on one side, and the patients develop piles and issues with the piles on the other side. So non-adherence is a common problem, and making the patient take the oral iron is really a tough job. And that's why we have to always have been looking for alternatives. And then came the IV irons. You'll remember the history of oral irons that our government used to distribute these oral tablets. I remember giving these tablets to our patients in Sassoon Hospital, and they used to come back probably having just used a few tablets and used to come up again with worse anemia than the visit before. And so we, for a long time, we look for alternatives, the intramuscular and IV irons, and the intramuscular ions and subcutaneous ions was the first one introduced with ferric hydroxide solutions. They were useful, but the safety was always a big concern in this situation. And that's why now we have different kind of parenteral iron therapy. First generation irons were the iron dextrans. When we were residents, and I'm talking of ancient history. That's so about in 1975 and 77. This iron dextran was very common, and we used to calculate. Some of you will remember that as the total iron dose, what was called as TDI, and this was given intravenously. And believe me, I have seen at least 2 patients dying in front of my eyes, and 5 to 6 patients barely surviving, with the reactions that they got. And since then, we used to be deathly scared. At least I used to be deathly scared of giving intravenous, iron to any patients for a long, long time. Then came the second generation, parenteral irons. Ferric gluconate was kind of a little safe, but it was intramuscular, used to cause a lot of pain. And again, there had to be a technique of giving it, what was called as, Z technique, that again, some of the older practitioners would, remember, how to give this particular injection. It used to be painful, it used to stain the skin and so on. Then, of course, came iron sucrose, and that was actually a great relief, when it came, because it was one of the safest one that we could use. And again, I remember, an interesting history about it. The study was, done in our place also, and a more detailed study was done by Dr. Hema Divakar in her centers. And we found that, this was fairly safe in pregnancy. And with this, I happened to meet at that time, there was an NRHM director, a wonderful person called as Dr. Padmanabhan in Delhi, and explained to this that this could be, one of the solutions that we could use, for our, especially the poor women in general hospitals where they can, get this intravenous doses. And he looked at the whole issue and then took it up to the government. And it's always tough to get, anything to the, the secretaries and ministers and in the government, but he managed to get that actually sanctioned, and we had iron sucrose in our national program since then on. Now, of course, we have the third generation ions and easily available to us, and a good one at that is ferric carboxy maltose, which now we have been using, and we'll be discussing that. So iron dextran, as I said, it had a high molecular weight. It was a stable complex, but the allergic reactions were very high. The anaphylaxis reactions were very high. And when it was used intramuscularly, it was painful and staining. Ferric gluconate and iron sucrose, I already described to you. And now, of course, we have a unique, strong complex structure with the third generation intravenous iron. And they release, sort of these complexes are labile and release free iron also very easily and make it available for absorption. So if you look at overall at what the ideal parenteral iron should be, it should have a good, it should be a robust product with good molecular weight. And basically, always these parenteral ions have a carbohydrate moiety, which sort of is engulfing them and covering that. And that complex should be a stable complex, which is there with, the present ferric carboxy maltose. Then the pH should be neutral, and most important, the antigenicity should be low. And again, a surprise was when we started, again an anecdote, when we started using iron sucrose, and I went with this iron sucrose to the, this was around 2007 and 2009 and 10, when as a president of the FOGSI, the secretaries pointed out that there were reported with, iron, sucrose, 3 or 4 deaths in India, especially in Rajasthan, in those places. So we were quite surprised. And then we looked at those, what were there. Then we found that these were, sort of copies of the original iron sucrose. And the molecular weight was entirely different. And that's why the patient had suffered. So again, we went back to the government, told them that that's why, you need to go for a particular, brand of iron sucrose. And that's where, again, the MQR scored in their, proper brand. And that's why, surprisingly and correctly, by the brand name, it was including in NRHM, program at that time. So again, important part about the intravenous ions is how much time does it take, and this is something that SOP that we must emphasize on. For all our practitioners, that if you take too long, sometimes people are scared. They start the IV iron very slowly, and it goes on for like in a full bottle of saline 3 hours, 4 hours, and all. In fact, that causes more problem. Because then the free radicals are more released in this particular way, and that's why we must emphasize and allay the fear that we have to give this faster. Especially when it comes to ferric carboxy maltose, we have to finish it at least ideally in 15 minutes, but at least in half an hour. Because and so it used to be the same for iron sucrose. The only problem with iron sucrose was dose which could be given at one time was less, and that's why the patients used to have to come repeatedly for the injections intravenous. That again was overcome now with this FCM. So we have our government guidelines of Mukta Bharat 2018 that have come in. And again, we have to give credit to, one person in city of Pune who thought of, anemia Mukta Bharat or anemia Hatao. My own, secretary, Dr. Shirish Patwardhan, when I was president of POGS, he was the secretary. And we had a first rally again with, our Orofor brand at that time in city of Pune in year 2000. And believe me, none other than actually the legend Dr. Bhanubai Koyaji had led that rally, and we, it was a walking rally from, all along the road in city of Pune. And this was the first time that such a public program was held anywhere in, India. And with Bhanubai endorsing it, it was a real event, at that time. Again, a lot of old memories, Okay, you have to pardon me for that, right? Okay, right. So, this is what happened and now we, of course, have this, guidelines for mild anemia, 10 to 10.9, moderate anemia, 7, 7 to 10, and, severe anemia. And I'm not going to, go through these slides because you all are well versed with that. Severe anemia, of course, this is again, we have to emphasize that we should not be afraid in using parenteral ions, even in severe anemia. Because, always the worry is, if HB is somewhere around 5 grams, then shall we give, a PCV or shall we give, iron? If the patient is not bleeding, and if you can somehow, even if the patient is of, say, abnormal uterine bleeding or fibroids, and if you can stop the bleeding by other means, it is much better to give, this intravenous iron and wait rather than, giving, Paxil volume and, trying to, because Paxil volume, even if you give, that doesn't really take care of the anemia for very long, as we know. And they, of course, giving blood and all has a lot of issues. And that's why one has to be bold, and one can, wait and correct the anemia, with parenteral iron. So this is a simple, study that we carried out, as Onkar rightly pointed out, a real life experience. What we did, we just wanted to present and put forward. So basically, the idea was the efficacy of FCM in our women, and of course, most important, to see whether safety is there and what would be the adverse effects with this. So it is a single center study, retrospective, not claiming to be, something great research or anything, but a practical study at that, So we included, all the pregnant women who were coming to us during antenatal period, because, initially the hesitancy was the FCM was actually allowed only for, non-pregnant and, postpartum anemia. And that's why, starting it in pregnancy, we had to look at, many issues and take. Initially, of course, it was an off-label use, but still we had to, because it was, we realized that it was so safe postpartum. So if we start using it gradually in pregnancy, and with the experience of iron sucrose, we went ahead and used that. And even with severe anemia, that has made a lot of difference. Right. So, the data available is of 271 patients from January 2017 to 2020. Total of 306 FCM infusions were given. The dosage of FCM injection varied from 500 to 2000 milligram depending on the iron requirement, with a mean dose of 1057 milligram. And as you can see here, even in moderate anemia, the mean duration of follow-up here was around 27 days, and we found that the mean increase was 1.25 gram, which was quite significant in the patients. Then, if we look at the patients with severe anemia, there is really a dramatic difference, because we could get rise as much as 4.23 grams in the patients in just 25 days. So that makes a difference between giving them, the blood or PCV and, using this. So we can definitely be bold to give this even in severe anemias when, as I said, when the patient is not actually, bleeding. So if we look at the number of patients, again, this you will find little informal, because first 96 patients, from baseline, we checked them from 2 to 4 weeks, and we found that the rise was 1.1. Then this is in moderate anemia, of course. Then in other patients, from baseline, we checked them at 4 weeks. This keeps on varying, because we know in practice the patients don't do exactly what you say every time, and we have to modify it according to their convenience also. But overall, if you see, the rise was around 1.4 or so. Then if we look at weeks, we take the patients before 24 weeks, of course, we avoided giving the FCM in first trimester. So usually, we prefer in the second trimester, just as a common safety precaution. And so less than 24 weeks, 45 patients, and we found there that the rise was 1.7. Then from 24 to 34 weeks, 106 patients, then the rise was 1.07. And after 34 weeks, 13 patients, and because the follow-up was shorter follow-up, then the rise was 0.88. If we go by the gravidity, there were 81 primary gravidas, 55 second gravidas, 15 third gravidas, and believe me, there were 5 fourth gravidas, 5 fifth gravidas, and 2 sixth gravidas. Of course, they were gravidas, not paras, so that's important. But we did get a good response in all these patients. Then if you look at the adverse events, and this is very important, I think this is, just look at the slide, all these so-called adverse side effects were really, really minor. The worst we used to get is patient getting, rash and getting worried about, why suddenly that rash has come. And that rash with, something like, Avila, or sometimes with a small steroid injection, immediately, went away. So looking at all this, this particular molecule is absolutely safe, and that's the most important point. And this, after a long time, I can say that an intravenous iron can be given to a pregnant patient without fear in any circumstances. So what we did, to be just on the very cautious side, what we do is, our SOP is that when it is started, one of our doctors actually, because it takes hardly, 25 to 30 minutes to finish this thing. So one of our doctors actually, sits with the patient and monitors all these, parameters: heart rate, systolic BP, diastolic BP, even SpO2 for that, matter, just to be on, very, because as I told you in the beginning, I had that, deathly scared of losing the patients in my, recent days. And that's why I have decided that I'm going to be extra careful in, all these issues. So if you look at the, heart rate over 45 minutes is, after finishing the, this iron infusion, we still keep on monitoring the patients before we, let them out of our, site. So we, follow them up. As you will see, the heart rate is well maintained. The blood pressure is well maintained. There is no hypotension in any of the patients. Then if you look at the SpO2, that is also again very well maintained. So overall, all these safety measures, when we see, they really encourage us for all this. And the most important point, we have not seen, God forbid, even a single hypersensitivity reaction with MCM infusion. So what is the importance of the study? It's a good study, and Omkar tells me that it is one of the the largest Indian study available anywhere. Then we could see the significant hemoglobin increase, and especially in severe anemia, more than 4 gram, which is a great boon to the patient. And again, the rise is significant and rapid, and women even reporting in third trimester can use that, and continuous monitoring of vitals have shown us that vitals do not change to any adversity. The as conclusion, I think what we need to look at is the safety factor and the effectivity factor. And in both this, the FCM infusions score a lot, and that gives us a lot of confidence. So as I said, this is just a simple, straightforward, observational study that we saw in our practice. And, I think all of us, if we can keep these kind of simple documentation, I think even though we may not claim the research that the Western people do, but I think still we can have a huge data in our practice.